jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
Oh, out of control. So, we're back with a very special episode that details a one-of-a-kind cult action horror franchise. And with me to tackle it, you start the war, he'll kill you and it. It's Shawn Smith from the House That Screams podcast.
How we doing?
Very good. He commandos die hard at high noon. It's Robb and Takora,
Hello.
the cinema drunkie himself. So I'm just gonna circle around. Not as full of runa as I thought it'd be, but it's gonna be full enough. So
Yeah, that was surprising that more people didn't jump in on this one.
I know, especially how many people talk about this, but
Yeah.
so who wants to go first and how they got introduced to this cult icon?
I actually I first discovered it through I used to frequent when I was a kid this video store called Bondi's, and it was apparent that the people who were running it were like horror fans because all they had was horror posters of it. like all around, like, you know, I vividly remember discovering the poster for Chopping Mall in that video place, the store. And I remember it was a record and video store, and the record store was like the first floor, and then the basement was the video store, and then you had to go down the stairs. And on the ceiling of
you didn't invent this.
and on the ceiling of the stairs, they had a poster for The Kiss, you know, with Joanna Paculia and Meredith Salinger.
Oh,
And yeah, and that poster used to terrify the shit out of me. So every time I would go down to this place like to rent tapes, I would have to cover my eyes so I didn't see it. But,
like the scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Don't look at it.
right. So one of the times that we was down there, we used to go down there to rent like all kind of shit, like especially like He-Man and Thundercat episodes. And
Yeah.
like they had Phantasm, I believe, 2 playing on the screen, and that was the first time I had ever seen anything of it. And I'm just sitting there like fucking 4 or 5 years old looking at Phantasm on the screen like, no, you shouldn't be watching this.
Back
You know,
before they started being careful of what they would show as a preview at the video store.
right. But you know, this was like an independent video, so they didn't give a shit what they were showing. Like, you know, sorry you could have to see that, but we're not turning this shit off.
Yeah. There's one that I've always wanted to for years to be a clerk at called On Video, and it had really good deals. Like you could buy the movies in the stock if you were filling up to it, or you could choose your rental plan. And I'm not kidding. They had such a diverse library, you know, and this is back when early 2010s, late 2000s. So yeah, Blockbuster's already shutting down, getting its ass handed to it by Netflix. But it's like, I would at the most they would just have a PG-13 movie just playing on screen. I'm like, okay, so I'm not gonna see anything that's just what the hell's going on. But
Right.
they had plenty of other movies where it's like, I really don't want to leave with this movie and just be called a weirdo because it just looks like some weird cult horror film or something over the top. It's like, yeah, they made this.
Yeah, I see.
Man, so Bondies. Well, so James Bond has some stock in a video
It was
company.
Bondies.
Bobby's. Okay.
No, Bondies.
Bondies.
Bond.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. By James Bond, but with the E. All right. Shawn, break it down for us. How did you discover this?
I kind of had a similar story, and I've talked about this a little bit on House of Screams. My dad was a huge horror fanatic, and my mom did not like the fact that he would let me watch some of these movies when I was probably 7, 8 years old, and we had a mom and pop video store, and this was 87, 88. And it was called Superior Video, and it was like in the middle of the ghetto, little hole in the wall. But Rob, you can probably attest to this. The video stores always had like this distinct smell.
Yes.
And I don't know if it was, if it was from the tape that they used or the plastic of the VHS cassettes, but
I think that's what it was.
And it's just one of those nostalgic smells that bring back memories. But anyway, my dad used to take me to this video store, and we would go around, and he would he would pick out these movies, and if anything appealed to me, he would let me pick it out. And I remember coming across the case for Phantasm, and it was such a weird looking case. You had Angus Scrimm on it. You had the nefarious ball, the spears, and I remember we got this and we took it home, and this movie terrified me, and just Angus Scrimm himself, the tall man. He was just, I don't know, it was so different. Now you got to understand, I was watching Hellraiser, I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street, all this stuff, but but it was something about Angus Scrimm's performance that just terrified me. And with this fear and everything, and I'll get into we'll get into Phantasm 2 later, but so I don't want to go too far into it, but yeah, that was my introduction to
Very cool. So this was pretty frequent at just all these stores, and it's pretty clear that it embraced the home video way, because it's like the Terminator. It's like it changed companies every other time. I mean, it was an independent company that did the first one, then it switches to Universal, then they're not too keen on it, and even though they offered you a third one, it switches owners once again. And so it's so wild how the whole Cincology received a Blu-ray treatment, remastered, and they were able to get the rights to release all free.
Right.
All 5, my bad. But yeah, I will be honest, I had to encounter this years later. I already knew Angus Scrimm because he just would make other convention appearances. For fuck's sake, he's the narrator of the first Wishmaster. So
yeah,
he just had a voice, and was like, okay, I know that voice. I know the face. He's the tall man, but I haven't really seen Phantasm. I had my only intro to it was that Sci-Fi Channel would keep promoting re-airing the 4th one quite a lot, because makes sense. That one's kind of the least violent.
Yeah,
and it's the sci-fi of them all. Well, with the exception of Part 5, but it has like a real Part 4 has like the real more. It goes into the more sci-fi aspects.
Yeah, if you didn't know it, you'd strongly suspect that you're watching a Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, or X-Files episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's kind of the appeal of the tall man. He is kind of like Cancer Man in a way, where you just know that whatever he is, you just look forward to what tormented, demented thing he's going to say to someone. But that's just the other thing. Even though he has all this morbid and torture and anguish and other pain that he's going to unleash upon anyone, he doesn't even go that far. He's just kind of this is always there, just looking at you, and whatever it is, it can't be good. And I think it's just dead. It's subtle 1 minute, then it's in your face the next. A lot of these films. To break it down, it is kind of a cult kind of franchise. I mean, obviously it is, but I mean, it's also kind of just, for lack of a better word, just a similar kind of cult appeal, kind of like Trancers, Warlock, maybe even Cube.
Yeah.
And I can see, given how the third one first landed in Japan, I have no doubt that this is probably inspired by and maybe even inspired a bunch of Japanese horror anime or games. Maybe
The
Silent
first,
Hill.
not to cut you off, the first one was actually a huge hit in Japan, where Michael Baldwin, the star, became like kind of like a small kind of like pop figure over there. And he
Really?
said, yeah, he said him many times that he said that he used to get a lot of fan mail from kids in Japan that they just loved it over there.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, I could see the appeal. I mean, I've watched a lot of Japanese horror, and I could definitely see the appeal. Because it's, the first Phantasm, it's like the whole series is like, it's like a horror sci-fi fantasy hybrid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely so. So, as an overview, throughout the entirety of the series, the actors all play characters resembling their actual names. Reggie Bannister plays Reg.
Yeah.
Michael Baldwin plays Mike. That features flying death spears, deliberately confusing, may or may not be dreaming skip around segments, and lowbrow humor. Somewhat psychological, but never not intense. You can't spell alternative B movie classics without Phantasm. So I'm gonna go with the first one. It's just a very low key. It follows the residents of a small town under siege by a mysterious presence. That presence being the town's mortician, also known as the Tall Man, and he's reanimating the dead into misshapen zombies. But it's hardly just a straight up zombie movie. It's more of a alien invasion movie, kind of.
Yeah.
So
yeah, basically, that's exactly what it is. It's a sci-fi movie masked as a horror movie. Because like, if you explain like the schematics of it all, you know what I'm saying? Like, it is pure sci-fi. He just, just adding the mortician in the funeral home, all that stuff, just is the cover of it to mask it as a horror movie. But it's really more sci-fi than anything else.
Yeah. And didn't Don Coscarelli, didn't he base all this off a dream?
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it.
A dream, and also he kind of to write it, he kind of locked himself in a cabin for a couple weeks to write it, and like he basically got cabin fever while he was up there. And if you watch the movie, it shows, what I'm saying,
Right.
because all the weird shit that ended up in the movie, he said literally the scene with the severed finger happened because he just poked his hole through a styrofoam, his finger through a styrofoam cup, and that's how the scene with the severed finger came out to be. He was just losing his fucking mind up there.
Shiz.
Yeah.
So yes, Don Coscarelli, the mind behind Beastmaster, Survival Quest, Bubba Hotep, and Masters of Horror episode. So yeah, he's definitely a cult icon. I've never seen him at any convention, but I have no doubt he's always a sold out presence there.
Yeah, he's very well respected figure, and in the community. Also, being that I mean, the guy is just likable, Even though I kind of have my reservations about him, like how he really feels about the series, because sometimes he gives me like that air that he just wants to be done with Phantasm. Like 40 years later, I'm still making this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, but after he did the first Phantasm and it was success, they wanted him to do a sequel, and he was like, "Nah, I'm done with that. I'm gonna work. I got this better idea. I call it Beastmaster, and that's gonna be a big success." And then Beastmaster got fucking taken away from him, and then he couldn't get a job to save his life. He got fired from Cujo. He got fired from.
Oh wow.
He also got fired from Silver Bullet.
Yeah.
He was like that. He shot Survival Quest in '86, and it sat on the shelf until it was basically given a quiet release in '89. And the one thing that got that release was because he had to come back to make Phantasm 2 in '88.
Did Survival Quest get any extra attention because it also, had 2 stars of Aliens, Mark Rolston and Lance Henriksen?
I mean, it should have, but it just quietly got thrown away.
Damn.
The fact that it got released was because of the release of Phantasm 2. So, Coscarelli seems like a nice enough guy, but I just feel, he's not that revered to his own series as he leads on to believe.
And I mean, it is kind of one of those where it's like, only I can do this because I am the creator, but at the same time, I really want the story to end here, but everyone else wants more. So I do think it is kind of another just dilemma where you have to make yourself happy as well as the people who hire you and the audience happy. So it is, 3 different people, crowds to please. That can't be easy.
So,
and of course, you want to have it make money, but at the same time, you don't want to keep making these. So,
right.
What's the general overview on this? I can definitely see how this one is going for just kind of just more straight horror and just kind of just freaky without being a gore fest so much. Nothing against the gore fest. It's kind of just more just kind of just keep upping the tension. And it takes a minute to get used to Mike because he looks kind of more like a girl here and just kind of more subtle.
He's definitely got that 70s frayed hair. It's so pretty.
Got fired from the garage rock band circuit. And older brother Jody, who doesn't really do much until arguably part 5, is pretty much the badass here. Just pumping a shotgun and teaming up with Reggie. Yeah. And I think, and before you know it, it's done. And you're like, I kind of want more. Did they run out of money, or is it that's all that they knew they had to get your attention and they couldn't afford to let it drag out? They didn't have. Don kind of has kind of a John Carpenter feel where he has to amp up the weirdness and then, do anything he can to make you not take your eyes off the screen. So
that's funny that you say that because the original cut of the movie was actually 3 hours.
Yeah.
The first one actually took like 3 years to make. They started shooting it in '76.
That makes sense because this was all their first time. They'd all done some of the cast had done just guest spots, but this was still their make it or break it way to get the foot in the door. And I'll go ahead and just compliment all these. Well, no, actually, I'll leave that for later. I'll focus on Reggie. He's fucking awesome. He is the Bruce Willis of this franchise. He is just.
I would say more the Bruce Campbell. Like he definitely becomes that.
That's kind of it too. He has Bruce Campbell lines, but he also just kind of has kind of a Bruce, just kind of subtle nature. Just always just like, oh brother, what the fuck now? Just I'm getting too old for this. And
he definitely has the best lines. I mean,
he does. Making fun of how he's the ice cream man. He's only an ice cream man, and how he's continually trying to get laid. Sometimes successfully, some other times like, oh brother,
you're right. Much to his detriment. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
He's very self-detrimental, and yet just he's kind of the viewer's extra eye in, and especially more so because out of all the guys who are confused, he is the most confused. To where he's like, I should stop thinking about this too hard. It's not going to make sense, and he's just kind of. Whether you like the other sequels or not, he's just always just reminding you, this isn't going to make sense, and I'm just trying to get out of here.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of telling, for him as a character too, and probably as an actor as well. But, when Universal took the reins on the sequel, they told Coscarelli he could only have one actor return, and Reggie was the one that he chose.
Right. But they made him audition both of them because he wanted both of them. They made him audition both of them, and it was like, all right, you can have one, but you can't have both. And he ultimately chose Red. A decision that Michael Baldwin is still kind of bitter about.
I can't blame him.
to the point where he refuses to discuss Phantasm 2. I remember vividly on the Phantasm 3 commentary, he refers to it as the film that shan't be named.
Still better. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to be fair, he wasn't bad in the first one. Third one, I mean, I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
He kind of is slowly adjusting, kind of just being told what to do. And by part 4, he's really comfortable. He's really just still in every scene he can. And then part 5, you don't expect him to return. Next thing you know, here he is with a mask. So it's like, yeah, okay, here he is.
There's a reason for like what you just said about him in 3 and 5. There are reasons for that, but we'll get to them when we discuss 3.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But,
So I mean, for a first time out movie, it really does a hell of a lot. I mean, because there's other ones where it's, I mean, this is kind of just getting the presence of it. And at first you think, oh, so it's going to be a typical slasher, and the next thing you know, it's ghost movies. It's going to be like The Exorcist. No, it's going to be something else. So it takes all these tones, and you're kind of comfortable with it because it's just always changing. You just get used to it. Just all over the place, and it's kind of my general view on the whole thing. It's organized, unorganized, if that makes sense.
Roger Avery put it best when he was on the comment for Day of the Dead, and with like, you know, how they had the zombies in the salt mines down below, and he calls it Coscarellian in his twisted dementia of perfect sense.
Especially since he was such a big fan and was supposed to write part 4 and never made it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny you just said that. I just actually saw one of his newest movies today. I forget the name of it already. It's not that it's bad, it's just not the most notable, but it's basically a spin-off of Killing Zoe. And you guys will probably like it just because the Master Chef himself, Mark Dacascos, has a funny barfly cameo.
Nice.
Well,
anyway,
I gotta say, when probably within the last 2 months, Candy, my wife, had never seen this. She had never seen any of the Phantasm movies, and so I sat her down and put it in, and the Blu-ray was a gift to me from my daughter for my birthday. So we put it in, and you know, she didn't like it, and I get it. You know, I understand. Movie's not for everybody. The fact that I think that it's a horror sci-fi hybrid, she doesn't get into sci-fi at all.
Unless Star Wars, yeah.
I was about to ask, was it the sci-fi elements that turned her off?
I think it was, but I think, you know, like we talked about with the dream sequences, and you know, you're bouncing around, and you know, all this stuff. But you know, I'll be the first to admit, and she had asked me if I was going to bring this up. I honestly didn't really get into it either, and it kind of shocked me. And it was one of those things where it's like, I loved this movie as a kid, but going back and watching it, you know, years and years later, it just, I don't know, it just didn't do it for me the second viewing.
That's actually a good point. I think this is definitely one that if you're gonna go to see it at an anniversary screening with a bunch of people who've seen it countless times, so you kind of get the general flow, the aura in the room,
right?
Yeah.
Or just risk it, watch it, you know, online or at a used Blu-ray DVD sell, and just maybe even put the commentary on. So you just, because some movies are going to take multiple viewings, unfortunately, just because you don't know what to look for,
right?
And so when you feel left out, like, I really don't know what I should be looking for or what I don't get. So now I feel like an even bigger stranger, because not trying to be the cool kid, but I am trying to understand why it's a cult movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I did the big screening like that when they did the remastered version, supervised by J.J. Abrams.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the screening of that with a live Q&A with Coscarelli and the cast afterwards on live stream on the screen and shit. And it was basically like that, you know, a bunch of us fans in the room, you know, and just basically just having great time and shit because we all in love with the movie. But I will admit though, it did. There are a lot of moments in the movie where it just feels amateur, where they were amateur filmmakers. But a lot of stuff doesn't age well, like particularly Bill Thornberry's performance.
Right.
God bless him, but he's just really bad at points. Like the scene where the Mike gets attacked by the dwarves in the garage and the car falls on him, and then he sees defeat, so he hits it with the hammer, and Bill Thornberry's just like ah. Like,
I will admit that, and because he was like the only one who hadn't guest starred on any professional Screen Actors Guild worthy shows. So yeah, he's just friends of the production, and
right. He was more the singer-songwriter than anything else. He wasn't even the first choice, I believe.
Yeah,
it was Gregory Harrison. Gregory Harrison, I think, was the original choice for Jody, and he couldn't. So they just threw in Bill, and what I'm saying, like, yeah, you get to promote your singer-songwriter stuff, but he's obviously not an actor. I mean, he did moments where he tries his best. Like
yeah, the rest of the time, had it been anyone else, they would have kind of struggled. But he kind of just, you can kind of tell he's the kind of guy you just give cue cards and just confidence, and that's all you can instill, just because you want to work with him. But he's very limited. I'm not bothered by him, but I totally see what you're saying. Because throughout the rest of the series, he's just kind of just there in the background, and the effects are kind of complimenting him along with the different remixes of the theme. And he is just kind of he's always just, they always leave him to just do the exposition. And you can kind of forgive his emotionless nature or not really sticking out because, yeah, he's always like possessed or a vision, in the other sequels. And yeah, in this one, he's just kind of just confused, kind of not exactly hillbilly, but just kind of just whoop-de-doo, just playing music, but not really, you don't even really feel like he's the main star because it just keeps coming back to, Mike and
right,
following him around. And it does have many angles that you typically saw in a lot of low budget or less professional productions. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that this was everyone's first time out, and they're just like, I do think it's a good cinematographer because there are a few shots where it's like, I don't know how they did that, just that tracking around, especially considering what little they had to work with. So, but yeah, there are other ones where it's like, yeah, professional production wouldn't have gone there. And I guess that's why it also kind of appealed to a lot of people. They just expected it to be kind of too Hollywood, and it was anything but very Hollywood. It was just very unusual and weird. And
well, it wasn't. Going back to what you're saying, it wasn't everybody's first time out because Reggie and Michael Baldwin and Don had worked previously on the teen flick Kenny and Company.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Like,
that's where they met, right?
Yeah.
I only saw a bunch of TV credits and guest spots for him. So
yeah. Don had did Jim's the World's Greatest with Gregory Harrison, and then he did Kenny and Company, which was his first hit. And that's where he got the idea to do Phantasm, because they had an extended sequence in a haunted house and it had a big scare in it and it scared the crowd. And he was like, I should do a horror movie next. That's literally where the genesis for Phantasm came, because he wanted to do a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. And Company.
Oh, perfect. Are there any stories on how they casted Angus Scrim? Because, I mean, I previously had only known him from being overused in Charles Band and Jim Wynorski productions. So, I mean,
yeah.
No, like the funny thing, he's primarily known as the guy who writes linear notes for music albums.
Yeah, he won a Grammy. So
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did win a Grammy for that under his real name.
Even better.
Lawrence Rory Guy.
Oh.
So that makes sense, because I did see him credited a few different times, especially on Exploitation and Blaxploitation as Rory. And yeah, I didn't.
story. The Angus Grimm was just as, and it's just I just want to know whether I forgot the story, but it's like what an excellent name to choose as your horror persona.
Right.
Is Angus Grimm, you know?
Yes. And like the burger. No.
And unfortunately, I know he did a lot of cons, and I never got the chance to meet him. But I hear he was like just a super gracious guy.
Me
He's
neither. But I
absolute
mean,
sweet.
he has to be a sweetheart given the amount of independent ones. One of his last credits was the movie Disciples with another horror icon, Tony Todd. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And no, that's just cool though, because so here we go. The Jody actor, Bill is a singer, and then Angus is also a songwriter. So then you have all these people who've been in other areas of expertise, and they just feel confident enough. Like they did they feel like this was their make it or break it, or was it let's just see what happens? We're just having a little fun.
I think it was more along the lines of the latter. It was the let's just try that let's make a movie kind of thing. Like they shot it over 3 years on weekends, and let's try our luck with a horror movie. Like hopefully it's a big hit, and we get to make some money out of it. That kind of thing. I don't think that they were like they just like let's see what happens, but hopefully we'll get the big hit out of it that we all what I'm saying, because horror movies are big money makers, especially at that time. I know my father said when he's not a big fan of horror movies either. He thinks they're all comedies.
Ooh.
He so that this one particularly scared him back in the day. He was like, it was like the ultimate horror movie when it came out, Phantasm. He said he even saw it twice, because he liked it a lot, and that's saying a lot coming from the old man. What I'm saying, who thinks everything's a piece of shit.
I mean, I'll admit I'm not the most scared by horror movies, but I just love if it's not the gory mayhem, I just love the supernatural elements and just the whole how they get so psychological at times. And this, I can see why, if you were stoned out, this would blow your fucking mind.
Oh yeah.
But yet it's not.
Which he probably was, Pop.
He probably was, just to get through all the long work days. He's like, oh shit, I didn't know, every day was going to be 20 hours on set. And don't get me wrong, it is hard. I mean, Daniel Ryan has been on here and talked about doing extra work on SVU. I'm done extra work, and you totally see all the stuff that they tell you about TV versus film come absolutely to life, where producers dismiss the guest director of the episode and then have other crew members shoot pickup shots, how the makeup people are very stuck up, and how with that, before you know it, you can be on set for hours on end and then just be dismissed without warning. And people go out for smoke breaks, and if one person makes a noise, everybody's fucking pissed because now they got to reshoot everything. So and this one, I'm sure they could get away with a lot of stuff back then, since the 70s and different types of restrictions and monitoring, but I've never heard anything bad about behind the scenes, and if there was, I'm sure they covered it up pretty well. They're just like, won't make that mistake again. But it seems like there is a lot of legit love going into this, as opposed to we don't know what we're making, we're just seeing what sticks.
Right.
Now you could say that about the sequels, I totally understand, but like this one, they're just trying something out, and what you get is what you get. I guess, for lack of a better takedown. So I mean, we can save the rankings for the very end. Do you feel like this ends it on a good note, to where you're like, I want to see more, or was it just kind of just no surprise that of course they're gonna make a sequel? It was weird enough, it was culty enough.
Considering the sequel didn't come for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
I think I was too young to even, consider
Do the math.
right. Yeah, to even consider that there may be a sequel. And, in some ways I'm glad there was, in other ways I wish they would have not not made
Yeah.
any sequels. Well,
Whatever works. No, that's fine. I mean, because
I share that sentiment exactly.
I guess it
you got some of them, but other than them, you just wish they'd left it the fuck alone.
yeah.
no, that's fine. That's how I kind of am with Pirates of the Caribbean. I know a lot of people love Johnny Depp and Jack Sparrow, but I'm just like, the first one was just perfect. When I look at it even closer now, it's just, I didn't need to see 5 more years. It just was perfection, and
Yeah.
they kind of messed with it. So
And I think that's kind of a trend with, a lot of films, especially in the 80s, and I do see it a lot now, but they make one movie and it's such a great movie that they want to continue that, basically it's like a cash grab. Let's just keep making more of these until people don't want to pay money to see them anymore.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
like, and it takes away from the greatness of that first film.
Mm-hmm.
there's that, and then there's everyone always wants to call out the filmmakers and even the cast members for making comments that are later contradicted. And it's like, they're just doing their job, which is to promote. Don't be hard on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
unless they clearly are just pulling it out of their ass as they go along. And in many ways, I think that's kind of the pro and a con of the series. There is a lot of stuff pulling out of asses, but some of it's kind of interesting shit, and some of it's just kind of like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the perfect description of the series.
And so I absolutely failed getting into the first one. I didn't hate it, but I was just like, I don't know what the fuck's this is about. And
I I'm already see I'm the odd man out.
I was an outcast. I'm like, I don't get it. I'm not sure I'll ever get it. I'm afraid to even retry it because I'm afraid I'm going to piss someone off. So I'm just, I've tried this in college. I'm going to leave it here. Fortunately, podcasts are a wonderful thing. It's interesting what you can do when you can revisit stuff. So
Yeah.
I definitely like this one. I'm like you guys, kind of reluctant to just recommend this because I just know everyone's mileage is totally going to vary on these kinds of movies because they're beyond description, for lack of a better word. And so that's why I kind of compared it to all these other stuff like X-Files and Trancers and Cube, because it is a very complex and yet bizarre and yet beyond description kind of series.
I'm gonna have to run that Cube comparison by Candy because she loves Cube, and she fucking hated this movie.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not trying to bash Cube even. I just think it's just kind of, I mean, because a lot of the
I get what you're saying. It's more niche than anything else.
Right.
it's an unusual gimmick. I mean, I could compare it to Hellraiser, but I don't want Clive Barker's fan base raining hell upon me. So, but I get that kind of general sense where its gimmick is with a mysterious man who's got unusual gadgets and a death game, so to speak, and he doesn't have a box, so to speak, but he does kind of have just some kind of unusual cryptic mythology.
He has a ball. He has a few balls.
Well, yeah, that's right. Oh,
got-
he's got balls to throw all those spears around. Yes,
We
and
got a bunch of little Jawas running around.
Oh yeah.
and this is what tracks us back to Reggie. He seems to just hate dwarfs or just have outdated, bigoted stuff that's just for a joke. It doesn't bother me for once because, I mean, this is a fucking silly at times and yet moody and yet you already know just from the first frame that this is not going to be a politically correct film, so it doesn't really bother me. But at the same time, it ages way better than other movies. Which
in the sequel he throws out the M word.
Oh, I totally forgot. But
Yeah.
Yeah, he used.
but
the M word.
I still would think this would age way better than other movies, which just will throw out racial slurs or just have unusual, just tasteless jokes where you're like, someone thought that was funny back in the day. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Would you put this in the same category maybe as Evil Dead? It's an acquired taste.
Evil Dead, a bit more universal.
Well, that, I mean, and that's kind of why I did the Cube comparison, because this was partially owned by Lionsgate and just you just always see spooky ads for it and be like, that looks mind blowing and so bizarre. I got to check it out.
Right.
Transfer's comparison just comes in that you got just very unusual heroes teaming up to take just a very just mutated kind of evil in a way.
If I was going to compare this to another movie, it'd be something fucked up like Videodrome.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
Just something that's like, I mean, it's very niche. It's just fucking like off the wall, like out there. Because this was different than in any other horror movie I'd seen.
Oh, okay. I get that comparison now because, Videodrome. I just kind of think of all the, just
yeah.
But yeah.
I could especially see the Videodrome comparison when you go into Phantasm 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of fucked up shit in Phantasm 2.
For whatever reason, I kind of get more of a Paul Verhoeven kind of feel. If Paul Verhoeven took a Sam Raimi script and then did it whatever he wanted to do.
That's a more apt comparison. Sam Raimi, because Phantasm 2 does definitely have a Sam Raimi feel to it, especially in the cinematography. He even gets like an Easter egg in there, in the scene where the gravediggers are cremating the bodies and shit, and they're crushing up the bones left over. One of the baggies that they're pouring the ashes into has Sam Raimi on it.
No kidding.
Yeah,
I will have to check that out. I missed that.
Funny.
So what do we think about part 2? Like, pick all these sequels, pick up instantly, and just always leave open a cliffhanger. So hence the fan dividing and the studio questioning whether this is a marketable franchise.
I like it when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like they want us to just light up every single forum on the internet. No one can have peace. So it's set 8 years later. Mike's now a mental patient, having more blurring the line between reality and now. He's just having nightmares, and he recalls that dreadful night, and he escapes and wants to get revenge.
No, he doesn't escape. He's released.
Yeah, that's right. He's released, but he's escaping from the town. He's hiding out at a house with Mike, and they're just trying to find out where they can locate the mortician, because they know whatever happened, he has a connection to it.
Right.
So what do we think of the recast of James Lee Gross as Mike? Hey, we respect opinions here. Not an argument for him.
I think James LeGros is a fine actor, and I think he does well. But I would have loved for them to have kept up with continuity and just recast a Mike Baldwin. But I wasn't the studio head. The studio head thought otherwise. So we got James LeGros, and for that matter, he's fine. It was almost Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt auditioned for the Mike, and he almost got it.
That's so weird. I have nothing against Brad Pitt, but I can't exactly see him in this. I don't know why. I'll let you guys go first. Sorry.
Like male horror leads in horror movies were a big kind of thing for like young male actors coming up. Like,
absolutely. You had to be a cowboy or a detective, or it had to be a horror lead.
Look at when you talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 2, how many up and coming actors auditioned for the role of Jesse before they gave it to what's his name again? Mark Patton. Before they gave it to Mark Patton, I think John Stamos auditioned for Jesse.
Uncle Jeff.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like that was a big deal. Like being like the male lead in a horror movie. Because how many actresses broke out after being the final girl in a horror movie. So
I mean, look at Johnny Depp and in the first Nightmare on Elm Street.
Absolutely.
All right, and that was
he wasn't even intended. He wasn't even there to audition.
And the fact that he's remembered for that, and then he put all his heart and soul to Platoon. They cut all his scenes for the most part. So And then you look at other people. I think we were looking at people who were supposed to be the lead in both films like Strange Day and Die Hard, and half those people in the picks were like, "Yeah, couldn't see it." It's not because they're good movies. It's just like they're just, even if they had the look, they wouldn't have had the persona, and I think that's just it. Shawn, I'll let you take it away. Is this a overdone recast, or is it barely cutting the mustard, or is it just wrong sauce?
No, I mean, I don't think it's bad. Phantasm 2 is my favorite of the franchise.
I think it is for all of us. It's that kind of.
A lot of people will say that.
And I gotta say, for me, it's like I'm a gore hound. The makeup and special effects, and you got some big names in there. You got Robert Kurtzman, Greg Nicotero, and a name that keeps popping up on House That Screams, Everett Burrell from your Hard Rock Zombies.
Mm-hmm. and a Romero intern.
Right.
He's been in everything.
Also, Mark Shostrom, whose show it was, he was the makeup supervisor on From Beyond, which another favorite of mine.
There you go. Yeah, Stuart Gordon, we still miss you.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of weird. It does kind of. This does kind of have, by that point, kind of a Wishmaster kind of feel, and I can definitely see how Kurtzman would have been inspired by that when he was working on, Army of Darkness and all the other movies. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you just mentioned From Beyond. It is kind of like half of Brian Usna and Stuart Gordon's work, where it's gonna your mileage is gonna vary on each entry, but you kind of still kind of like their intent, for lack of a better description.
Right.
I've always been a big fan of LaGrosse. He was just always one of those guys growing up. I didn't know his name, and I mistook him for a few other similar actors. I just got done actually a month ago watching an indie he was in called Floundering, and he was just kind of, to me, just always the leading man that never was. He should have had a bigger career, but I'm sure he doesn't mind. I mean, he got to be on Sleeper Cell and Point Break. What better career could you ask for? So
I think that's probably his two most famous things is
maybe
this. Point Break. Yeah, he had that small role in Near Dark. He was the young little cowboy in the back that was scared. He also had a small role in Enemy of the State with Will Smith. He was
right, and that's so weird. I was looking at his resume again. I'm like, oh, who did he play? I remember everyone else. I remember Gabriel Byrne, Jack Black, all the other supporting has-beens, Barry Pepper, Jake Busey, obviously, but I don't remember who he played. Was he one of the Mercs or?
Oh, he was Will Smith's buddy, like the.
Oh, okay.
Buddy, and they had the scene where they talk about Will Smith's character's obsession with blending stuff, like obsession with blenders. Like, you're weird.
Damn.
Yeah.
So that's before he even gets to the lingerie shop, and then has.
Yes.
Future, My Name Is Roll Star. Okay, I'm getting off topic, but no, that it's another movie where there's just a who's who of everything. And LaGrosse, I really like him in this one. I'm not. It's not fair for me to compare him. I mean, you could say it is fair, but it's kind of unfair. Michael Baldwin didn't have as much experience. LaGrosse had a little more experience. He'd already been in Near Dark, so he's clearly. I don't know who his acting teacher was, but he's clearly in this one. He's like, this is make it or break it. I gotta be snarky. I gotta be a badass. I gotta amp it up and do what they're telling me to do.
He also has like a great, like, he adds like a toughness to the role.
That's so wild, and so I think that's what breaks up the continuity. You're so used to Mike. In the previous one, just kind of being told what to do and running around saying, "Oh, what's going on? What's going on?" And here he is. He is like, "Let's kick their asses. I'm done with this."
He basically becomes like the male Ripley, like in Aliens.
Very much.
That tough badass. He's got on like tight shirts. Showing off his muscles.
Right. Oh, I wonder how many dates he got from this movie. But yeah,
surprise.
I would not be surprised. I think he has good chemistry with Reggie. I think that a bit, because I mean, actors at the end of the day, I can't say from experience. Maybe he made it up. Maybe he was doing the actor's Bible where you make up your backstory regardless of what the filmmakers and other cast members give you. And because either way, he definitely knows what he's saying and saying it, as opposed to I'm just going to say my lines on time and look for better work. I wonder if he ever gets asked about it. I'm no expert on that area, but I'd say he's a reasonable lead role. And so when you told me Brad Pitt auditioned, I mean that makes sense because, like you say, that's the thing to be. That was the hot topic. Brad was already doing plenty of other just cheesy high school slashers, but most of those came out like a few years later when his star actually took off. Yeah, I just can't see him in this role for whatever reason. I would have accepted him. I just don't know if it would have been on his level.
I think it's just because James LeGros, he plays such a well lead that it's hard to see anybody else in it.
He kind of just has more of a everyday kind of look, and he changes his voice up, and it's always a voice you never expect because you see the beard, in later roles, and you're like, is he going to be a biker or a narc? What's he being? And he just kind of has that wise ass mentality, for lack of a better word, and I mean that in the best way. He's just like,
yeah.
So how do we like the flow of this? Does this really amp up the game, or is it just kind of slowed down a little bit?
Oh yeah. It totally amps it up. By
the end finale, it is just it's a gore fest, and it's lots of fights, and it's as if Jackie Chan was in a they're playing with chainsaws and they're letting out some kung fu moves. I'm like, hello. Doesn't matter where I don't know where that came from. That's cool.
That chainsaw fight actually has my favorite line in the movie, and probably my favorite line throughout the series, where Reggie pulls out his chainsaw and goes, "Come on, you mother!"
Yeah. Shame on me for not
pulls out his giant chainsaw, and he's
shame on me for not bringing it up as best chainsaw fights.
That joint was great.
It's like they were at Texas Chainsawville. They're like, "Hey, want a tribute?"
Absolutely, but I could see definitely the comparison a lot of people make when they're describing going from Phantasm 1 to 2 is how they say it's basically going from Alien to Aliens, and that's probably the most correct description you could give.
Evil Dead 2 is a director's cut of Evil Dead.
Yeah, basically. We
went from being low budget to bigger budget.
And it's more Phantasm 2 is more streamlined too, because I know another one of the stipulations that the heads of Universal had was it had to be linear. There was no playing around with dream shapes and all that. It had everything had to take place in reality. Like none of that, is this real? Is this a dream stuff? So that's where you get everything is real, so let's amp up the terror, you know what I'm saying, since this is all taken up, in reality. And that I definitely could agree with that. It's the Aliens of horror film, the all amp I guess that's why you kind of had to get James LeGros in there, you know what I'm saying, where it's you basically casting an action lead, so you had to get a guy that was kind of buff, you know what I'm saying, good looking, in there to be your basically your hero,
Yeah, fair enough. And well, what can I say? I'm actually a fan of Samantha Phillips. I totally forgot she was in this movie.
Yeah. Alchemy.
Yeah, Alchemy, and she's been in every other stupid HBO Skinemax movie, but I actually
she's great. I love Samantha Phillips. She's great.
She doesn't think her acting's that great. I've talked to her on social media, and I'll have to respectfully disagree. She's way better than a lot of those other, and house pets.
She's having fun. I don't think she's taking it seriously. She's obviously having fun. Like that whole sex scene with Reg, where you have such a You know, she's just obsessed. She's absolutely having a blast here. She, you know, she's
well,
not taking.
careful how you say blast. Sploosh. So yeah, future music video star and sexpert Samantha Phillips is in this, and yeah, she doesn't do bad. I don't really remember as much as all the other people because I just feel like Reggie just amps up the time to just kind of lead the brigade and have, you know, James's Mike just really just kind of stand his own ground. And I actually don't mind how they jump around other characters. Obviously, if you're a film snob and you insist that every movie be as linear as Universal imagined, beginning, middle, and end, you will hate these movies. They start and then they stop and then they just keep going on and then they stop again and then they start and they're always just jumping around. So
Yeah.
some of them are going to take multiple viewings if you dare, just because there's just so much going on in every minute. So
Yeah, definitely.
and I might, if I rewatch any of these, I'm gonna definitely have to have the commentary on.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
Just to make sense of it.
Yeah.
It's just, I have a little more fun with this. It's not as subtle as part one, but it's also, it's one of the better, let's be bigger and better, but not be overkill, so to speak. It's not do too much.
It's also its own thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
like-
you really don't have. All these
problem-
movies have
the
flashbacks from.
problem with the problem with sequels around this time was their whole thing was do the same but different, you know. Whereas basically the same movie but in a different setting. Like look at Ghostbusters 2, you know what I'm saying, which is it's
Yeah.
all the same beats as Ghostbusters, but it's just going about it in a different way. This Phantasm 2 is just basically its own thing, you know, like it's basically a continuation of the story, but like, you know, it's bigger and badder, you know, kind of thing.
Totally.
Which I totally appreciate, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, you do feel like a lot of the shots are pretty calculated. It's like someone told them what they could or couldn't film this time around, so they are planning out each one. They only have, I mean, it's for $3 million, so yeah, they cannot fuck around with any special effects. And most of it's going to that, especially to sell the movie, and you know that is the movie.
Yeah. You can
And
definitely tell in this one versus the first one that they spent a lot more on special effects and they had much better people doing it.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
But you know, I mean, what sells me on this movie and why I think it's my favorite is the fact that it's more linear. You know, there's more action. You know, I think at this point the acting in this film compared to the first one's much better.
Yeah.
And you know, like I had told Cameron earlier, this movie just had more balls.
Exactly.
Oh.
Pun intended. And Reggie's gun, it's a 4-barrel shotgun, and he carries around some knives, but this one, I wonder if this inspired any other, you know, video games. You know, did the Doom guys watch this and say, oh, we got to make the BFG?
Right.
My uncle, who was in the military, Cameron, you know, my Uncle Manny, he said
Uncle Manny! Hi, Uncle Manny!
he said that gun would be impossible to shoot in real life.
Yeah.
I bet it would knock him on his ass.
Yeah, that gun will kick you back a couple of feet if you shot. So,
much like
it does look cool though. It is
exactly, and
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those movies where I'm okay if someone acts kind of, you know, unrealistic or over the top, because I mean, that is the tone, that's the mood. Also, it's so over the top, nonstop from beginning to end, and I mean. I also got to hand it to LaGrosse for just, when he's in the final fight, just saying, suck on this. And he says it's so serious without you just cringing or saying, really? You know, that's kind of childish. But you have to remember, he kind of is a man-child. He's just flat out just saying, all right, I'm going to shove some fucking dirt in your face, you big fat fuck.
If you notice though, like I always notice this every time I see Phantasm 2, as like the camera pulls into, he like ever so slightly looks at the camera like as it gets closer to his face. I guess worried that if the camera was gonna.
He probably was.
No, watch that scene. Like watch that scene.
No, I think I know. Yeah.
His eyes shift for a second and then shift back to like Angus Scrimm in the background before he goes suck on.
I didn't know if he was just looking around nervous or if that was kind of a blooper that was in there. He was
probably like this motherfucker's about to hit me, man.
It was like his 5th or 6th movie he did, so yeah, I'm sure he's still getting used to it. And it does look like there's a lot of crane shots as well as just.
Oh yeah, totally.
If there aren't dollies, then they're at least using just other alternatives. And I can't really say that there's any rack focus shots, but they're definitely using similar equipment and type of shots. It's weird.
They're definitely using a lot of like POV, like the Forest from Evil Dead shots. Like
I think that's what gets us all into these easier.
Yeah.
I feel like we're witnessing the terror and the outrageousness and the shit hitting the fan, so we're interested. We're invited to just watch it hit the fan. Just,
I love that shot with the where the ball is I think it's the golden sphere by this point is chasing Mike and Liz, and it's going through the doors every time he's shutting him. Like that's my favorite shot in the movie.
Yeah, I love that scene.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those rare blockbusters. I mean, you see stuff like that now and again. The most I can think of is maybe Sicario, maybe some other, whatever the latest Tom Cruise or Denzel Washington franchise is nowadays. But, this is a pretty rare movie to just have the fun, but be very, very dark and serious.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be, you still had to have plenty of laughs in between the dramatic stuff because, you're going to depress them. They're going to walk out.
Well, Reggie had that in spades with the laughs.
Yeah, he saves them up here.
Yeah, and I think that's where you make the comparison of, with this and Evil Dead, is it's similar in the vein that, the first Evil Dead was more of a serious movie, and Evil Dead 2 was more kind of tongue in cheek.
Right.
And that's what I see with these. Like, it's still a serious movie, but it really is. It's almost, very similar to the first one, but just more comedic.
Yeah.
And it is wild how we keep comparing this to Evil Dead, because, this is the same year as Evil Dead 2, and that both those movies, like you say, have the same technique, where it's like we got to be a little more layered and. Again, we got lucky the first time. Now we can't spend up our luck. We gotta.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's more so to appeal to a wider audience.
I've heard
it is, and it's the rare moment where they're still letting them kind of do what they want as long as they finish on time. I don't know how Don was with the producers, but I take it, if they allowed him to do the first 4 movies, clearly he had some good mojo going to where they weren't gonna fire him.
Whatever mojo he had went away after this movie.
That's fine. I was waiting for it. No, that's fine, because he does feel like this is the last one, and then even near the end, I'm not freaked out by the tall man, but I still want to know what he'll do, and I do think he's a cool villain. I'm actually cool with him not always getting many scenes, because he is just kind of that just looming danger, kind of like Cancer Man on X-Files, where I just like, okay, he's in the background, but he doesn't have to be like all these other guys, like the Candyman or Pinhead, where he must be, or Freddy, where he must be in every other scene, terrorizing innocents. He's not. Nothing against Jason, but he's also not like Jason. He's not where you're looking forward to seeing who he'll off next. But typically when there's yellow makeup or anything, it looks pretty bad, or just for whatever reason just makes you take it less serious. Here, I take it serious, and at the same time, it's just like it adds to the over the top tone. And I
Oh,
mean,
you talk about the yellow mustard blood?
yeah, all the yellow
Yeah.
ooze. The
Oh, that yellow mustard.
Mhm. Well, I love mustard, but I would have
Dude.
never known. Uh, I'd hate to even know how many containers. Well, actually, how many containers of mustard did they use for the makeup? Does anyone know?
Especially on Tall Man's death scene.
Yeah.
which is probably my favorite part in the movie is Tall Man's death scene. Is that meltdown.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times, like, being a gore fan like Shawn is, I can't tell you how many times I rewound that fucking scene with Tall Man's dying and he's melting. I think also because a lot of it has to do with the score, like, the Phantasm scores are like my all-time favorite horror movie scores,
Mhm.
and with the score adding on to that, so as Candyman, fuck. That Tall Man is just melting
No, that's a
down.
good comparison. It does kind of have that aura of a Philip Glass kind of score where he's just like,
Yeah.
and people have noted it sounds like The Exorcist. I definitely can see that, but it's kind of, I don't know. It's not trying to be as chilling, but it is kind of be very atmospheric and constantly moody.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's definitely something I meant to mention for when we talked about the first one was the Phantasm theme. I don't know so much about the score of the whole movie, but just the theme that has stuck with me my entire life. And I equate it with mausoleums, or anytime I go to a cemetery, I hear that playing in my head.
Oh no. Shit. It is kind of one of those you wouldn't be surprised to just kind of hear it referenced in another theme or another composer, because it is just kind of that. Phantasm wasn't so underground that no one knew about it, but it was just kind of one of those word of mouth kind of movies. So it is, yeah. I definitely can see someone like not a Hans Zimmer per se, but maybe more underused guy, maybe Brad Fiedel and his Terminator scores, or someone else just kind of playing around with that. But I do think it is, like you say, just unique and to the point, and maybe playful, for lack of a better word. Just,
Yeah.
because it's always changing, and sometimes it's repeating, but then it's just slightly faster or slightly more laid back, and the right kind of repetition, without you just making you remember, oh yeah, of course, this is a 70s or 80s movie.
Right.
And there isn't any synthesizer that I can think of, but it is kind of, I'm sure someone has remixed it. Some electronic industrial rock person probably sampled it.
It was the disco version of the Phantasm theme.
Yeah.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, if you get the special edition Phantasm DVD that was released by MGM, they have as like a hidden Easter egg special feature on the disc, you could find the disco version of the Phantasm theme, and it goes on for like 7-8 minutes.
Oh man,
Sounds like some disco inferno shit.
Make it repeat.
I know.
I totally did. I was in there doing my fucking best John Travolta impression. I listened to that shit as a kid. Yeah, get down.
Yeah.
Man, Saturday Night Phantasm Fever.
I'm gonna need you to upload that onto your OnlyFans so I can check it.
Oh my god.
Now I will say, and I know I've mentioned it before. The electronic producer Figure, he does a lot of horror songs and remixes and stuff, and he's done at least one or two Phantasms that I know of.
That's cool.
Nice.
Very sweet. So, yeah, once again, more mayhem, more typical, just confronting the villain. Less confusing narrative than the others, but lo and behold, it gets confusing again because the tall man's not dead after previously getting melted. And cliffhanger begins again, and it's a repeat of the last one because, it ended almost exactly like that.
Yeah. That's one thing that Coscarelli just like Like, dude, how many of these are you gonna end like this? Knock the fuck off.
Right.
Yeah. And part 3.
All right. Well, I gotta go. You guys have fun.
Oh. No, it's fine. We like diversity here.
Yeah.
So once again, this is now a mind game. No, literally a mind game. Good luck telling half the time what's real and what's not, because this is where
Oh, and also apparently we're a fucking comedy. We're an unfunny fucking comedy that sucks ass.
Oh, man. Well,
Like,
this-
let me get right off the bat. Like, in preparation for the episode, I only watched 3 or 5. I didn't need to see 1, 2, or 4 because I know them like the back of my hand. So I really didn't have to watch 3 because really I didn't fucking want to. But also because like I wanted to, refresh my memory and like, yeah, my memory is correct. It's still a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Five I definitely had to rewatch because I only seen 5 once. But I like my rewatch of 3. I didn't even make it the whole way through. I could not finish it. This is such a piece of shit.
Alright.
Like 3 is so bad. Like, and it's just, oh god. That's just start for starters. We can go into it.
okay, so Michael Baldwin is back as Mike, and barely, but he gets there eventually. And I don't think he's 100%, but I don't think he's bad. But you can tell he's still, if he's still bitter, then he's definitely got a little bitterness.
He was.
All right.
He said it. And they did like a kind of retrospective on the series. When they did in the UK, they released like a Silver Sphere collection of the first 4 because the Part 5 hadn't been released yet, and I had ordered it, and they had like a big retrospective on 1 through 4, and he admits that he was still kind of bitter when he did 3, and that it was cool to see everyone again, but he didn't give a shit. He said it was just another role. I didn't care.
Well, I don't get the bored expression, but I do get him just kind of just being very subdued. He's not.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd been away too much or a little uncomfortable, but yeah, he's here, and it does take you a little bit readjusting. It's like, okay, he doesn't look like the gross anymore. Okay, that's Mike. Oh yeah, Mike. It's clearly Mike because they're calling him Mike. Okay.
Right. I also think it's because everyone loves Phantasm 2, and Mike was turned to such an awesome character, and then they bring him back for Part 3, and then his character he's back for like, I mean, you could say the first 15 minutes, but he's like out of those 15 minutes, he's in like 5 of them, and then at the 15-minute mark, he disappears for like another 40 minutes until he comes back for like the last 30 minutes, and then it's like, why even bring him back at all? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, you did nothing with this motherfucker.
Well, that's just it. He's trapped by the tall man.
Yeah, but it was like, did really, like, did it really need to be that? Like, you couldn't, like, I mean, that's Coscarelli's fucking problem. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he tries to figure out ways to get out of the hole he put himself in by the way he ended the last one. And this one, he just kind of like fucking like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, all that shit we went through to save Liz, for the fucking dwarves to eat her face off and shit in like the first 2 minutes of Part 3.
Yeah.
For me, the makeup doesn't really bother me. It seems like I don't like it as much as Part 2, but I feel like it's trying to have a lot of the same, just more of the just back and forth. And then it's just amping up, trying to. It could easily, yes, be part of any other action horror franchise at the time, but this one is pretty much just. I feel like the new characters that they add aren't intrusive. I really took a fancy to Rocky, played by Gloria Lynn Henry, who is the cousin of the guitarist for Public Enemy. Fun fact.
Really?
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't know that. I did not know that.
Reggie takes a fancy to her, and next thing you know, he's fucking her. and then ends up making a butt sex joke in the same scene.
In a very unnecessary scene.
It's not necessary, but hey, this is a guy's movie.
It's very unnecessary. I know Coscarelli has a boob ratio. Like, every movie has, like, the first three essentially have all the boobs in them. But it's like why was the sex scene necessary? Like, I understand Reggie wants to have sex with her and shit, and that's all fine and dandy, but was it necessary to have it just so we could see her boobs?
Yes, because because when Reggie's happy, I'm happy.
I mean, but it's a dream, so he's, what I'm saying? So
exactly, that's why it's funny. He's showing every other loser who is like what he wants, what he can't have.
Right, because it's like part two, like he does get laid, after complaining to Mike, it gets hard on the road, and then he does have he does have sex, but she's like a fucking minion for fucking the tall man.
She's a
what I'm saying? Yeah, so he basically had sex with like a zombie. You know what I'm saying? And
I'll
this one,
it's this. Rocky doesn't have the best intro. Her other partner who's killed is fucking annoying as hell, Edna.
Yeah.
And she is so stereotypically black, but yet at the same time, I ignore it because it's a 90s movie. Every movie was doing that, and of course it was going to date poorly in that part.
Yeah.
It should have done more with Tim, the little kid who's really good at handling a gun. Doesn't say much.
I disagree. I think he shouldn't have did anything with Tim. I think he shouldn't have even been a fucking character.
Didn't like him.
Tim sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, should he be whining and saying how he doesn't understand?
I mean, that's the best thing I can say about his character. At least he's not a whiny little shit.
That's how I like my kids, man. Because many other movies that use these kids in a movie well.
Right, but then again, like, why even have him at all? Like, just so you can have a fucking a rated R Home Alone sequence in the movie. It's like that whole fucking sequence where they go with like the crew in the pink hearse. They go into the house, and he basically takes them all out Home Alone style. It's like, what the fuck?
I actually thought that was fun.
Phantasm.
Oh man, that's my favorite scene. I actually don't mind the free henchmen because I thought, oh dear, this is going to be hit and miss like Hellraiser free. And it's like, no, they just pretty much they're just like zombies. They're like, but they're not. They don't have stupid one-liners.
They die so fucking quick, and then they come back as zombies, and then they die so fucking quick.
That's it, but they got wacky expressions. Okay, so I'll put it to you this way. Phantasm movies for me work way better as a comic book than any other actual comic book adaptation. Boom. Controversial opinion. Sticking with it. Because that's pretty much how you got to approach it. It's like a comic book. It's just crazy and ape shit. And it's not going to flow like a typical movie because it wasn't made by anyone who was a typical filmmaker, let alone had that much film experience. So, I mean, he had film experience, but he was mainly a writer. And here he's doing his own thing, and no one's telling him what he can or cannot do. So,
yeah.
Okay, Shawn. We've hogged the mic way too much. I'll let you roast or praise or give an in-between. Ed, take it away.
I mean, Rob pretty much, covered my feelings on this one. Reggie and Angus, they're the ones that sell it for me in this, but the rest of it was just the second one's so much better.
Well, yeah, I get that.
To go from watching the second one and then to watching this one, it was just it still had plenty of gore, but it was nowhere near as satisfying. Like, I know that Kurtzman and Nick Terra were out. I think that what's the guy's name? Sjostrom.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's still doing this one, but it just, I don't know, man. This movie was out of the 5. This was my least favorite.
Yeah,
okay. That's fine.
This is totally bottom of the fucking barrel for me.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
I mean, I feel like it's cool and shit, but it's like, you know what I think the problem is? I think
I feel like they're doing more of the same, but the love's not there.
But
Yeah.
with Coscarelli made the conscious decision to push Reggie up to lead character status with this one, because Reggie's basically the lead from here on out,
Right.
and Mike becomes a side character. And I think with this one, he thought that because Reggie's kind of like the comedic role, like he's the funny man, where Mike was the straight man in part two, that because Reggie's the lead, you kind of had to make it comedic around him. And it's like basically turn this in like, you know, like you said, Cameron, like a wild comic book ride. But it's like his attempts at humor, especially black humor, it's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, it's just, I'm like it was like what Shawn was saying with they get killed, they come back as zombies, they get killed, and they come back. They come back with no explanation, like, in the car chase scene, Mike unloads the 4-barrel shotgun right into the bitch's fucking face, and then she's back. Nothing, like,
just like we don't know why the tall man came back. Just like we don't know why initially why Jody comes back.
Versions of him. There's multiple versions of him. That's why.
Right, but we don't know that right away, so I can take it. There's multiple versions of these guys.
Well, how?
Problem
Like,
solved.
how are there multiple zombie versions of the? I don't know. Like, yeah, I guess you're right.
There's no point in assessing this narrative because it's barely there.
Trying to find logic in this shit.
Well, there's a lot of plot holes in all these. I mean, part one goes really fast where you have to watch it a few times just to make sense of everything. So for me, marathoning these all, it makes sense, but you still just to connect it all. And
I mean, yeah, like to connect it all, it's gonna take a while, but it all makes sense.
All right. Well. I think this is a very convoluted milkshake, and some of it tastes good, and some of it gives you diarrhea.
Mustard,
especially this one.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, and so once again, more fighting, more dreams, and then once again, to be continued, and we're followed by Phantasm 4 Oblivion. And this is another one which divides everyone, and basically, Mike is just trying to understand the tall man. He's trying to come to understanding, you know, be in his shoes. Why does he want to kill? What was he before he technically, you know, was an alien and everything? And, you know, to think like your enemy, you got to be like your enemy in a way. So Mike is very more hardened this time around. He's getting more communication with someone who may or may not be Jody. And and then
it like plays with that a lot, whether it's Jody or not, you know. So you never really know if he's an ally, and I think that works to the movies, you know.
Apparently, the commentary on this is pretty helpful compared to some of the other ones. So
yeah,
yeah, this one played nonstop on Sci-Fi Channel, so I saw bits and pieces of it, and I could tell it was a big thing. People were talking endless about it, and it's probably the shortest out of all of them.
No, part 5 was the shortest.
Okay. It went a little faster for me, even though there wasn't much happening. I'll let you guys take it away. I've done too much talking.
I like this one a lot. I'm gonna admit. I remember, like I mentioned, the Silver Sphere Phantasm set that I got years ago, and I was watching them with Di. This was me and Di were together, and we binged them all through the weekend. And like we were watching the first one, we were laughing, joking, having a good time, and the second one as well. Third one, I was fucking miserable, and I was just riffing on the movie nonstop. And then me and her watching the fourth one, and I had seen the fourth one when it first came out on video, and but this was years after I'd seen it initially. And she noted that I wasn't saying anything. Like, oh, you were talking throughout the first three, but now you're not saying anything. You're just quiet. And I'm like, because I'm watching it, you know? And like, Phantasm 4 really shuts me up because it just sucks me into where it's like Coscarelli going back to that, like playing around with surrealism and story and the mythology of the tall man, or like, the face of the tall man, which we find out is Jebediah Morningside, who created the Dimension Fork. Like that stuff I love about it. And I also think that this is Reggie done perfectly. Reggie by himself on the road, trying to get laid, fighting, having, monster battles. Like that battle with him and the zombie cop is like my favorite thing in this movie.
Fun fact, that's played by Bob Ivy, stunt coordinator, who's in Bubba Hotep. Saw him at a convention.
He played Bubba Hotep in the Bubba Hotep movie. He's the one that did the car stunt in Phantasm 3 where the hearse goes in the air, which I will admit.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, that was him who was in the car when it flipped up in the air like that.
And that's way before you got something better to do scene. Anyway. Reggie's pretty much still in ass-kicking mode here. He's just like
he did perfect ass-kicking. I love Reggie in this. This is probably my favorite version of Reggie. He
almost gets laid again.
Yeah.
I love when he's trying, like, he's noticing the girl's boobs, like fucking like
and they make him spears.
Yeah. We're not done here, Reg. Sorry, baby. But yes, we are.
Yeah. And Jody is just as not as intrusive, but slightly as intrusive as in Part 3, where he just keeps coming in and out. And any other movie would just have me, if it was coherent, would have me saying, when they're spying on the tall man and Mike's trying to kill him and then he can't because they're not in the same dimension. And it's like, if I had been Mike, I would have been like, well, what the fuck good are you for, big bro?
Like,
could have told me that before we got there.
If you notice, it's almost two different Jodies. Like, the Jody in Part 3 is like immensely helpful and hopeful, and this Jody is kind of almost like alternate opposite Jody, where it's just like
again, Bill's limited acting is saved by incoherentness in the movie.
If you say so. I think it works.
It works for him. I don't think he's bad, and I've seen worse. But at the same time, when you're telling me he has limited acting, it makes sense to me. Have him say less on screen. Have him do little, and yet still be in the movie. Okay. Well, hello. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. Sorry. I thought I had broken up. All right.
No, it's okay.
I mean, unless I'm a broken record, I hope I'm not. Shawn, I'll let you get to cracking like a drug raid.
So this is one that I remember liking. It's been a while, and I actually wanted to go back and revisit it, but I just didn't have the time from when we talked about doing this. I didn't get around to it, but I do know that this was we got some special effects by KMB, Howard Berger and Robert Kurtzman.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
And the cinematography in this, and it had a very artsy feel to it. And I was going through some reviews of this to try to get an idea to jog my memory. And I saw that somebody had written that this would make a great standalone. And what do you guys feel about that? Because it's been a while since I've seen it.
I wouldn't recommend it. I just think there's just too many pretentious people out nowadays. They would just be unkind.
Right.
And there's just so much that you're just not going to make sense of unless you've seen the last three. So
yeah,
I agree with you. It is a little more mainstream, but in a good way, as opposed to you whores. You sold your movie to the highest bidder. But it is kind of one of those where it's like, it could easily. This is the most music video out of all of these.
Yeah.
If you notice that there's quite a few times where Mike is walking through the desert, Death Valley.
Yes, I made several notes of that.
you can notice that there's somebody in the back. It's almost kind of like Haunting of Hill House, where it's just like if you look closely, you see somebody in the background, like a lurker or something, or a grave digger, just in the background, like blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. And
some of it's deliberate, some of it's just a crew member on a bad day. At least he wasn't
Especially in
holding a
the
boom
scene-
mic. Then he'd have to explain even
especially
more.
in the scene where they're at I think was it Las Vegas Strip, and it's supposed to be completely desolate, and you can see like this old lady in the background walking, look like she's shopping. Like she's the only one on the block. Her and Angus Scrimm are the only ones there. Like Angus Scrimm is walking around like king shit of the city, and there's this little old lady real far in the background with a shopping bag.
Right.
Get her to show like, old lady, get out of the way. Fuck you, I'm shopping.
hmm And then just Reggie just taking the car this time is also just kind of funny. He's just by this point he knows that apparently the actor in real life has actually taught acting classes in recent years, but I can see why. He realizes that whenever the camera's on him, he has to provide fodder, so to speak. He has to be either killing or joking or being some other just kind of reacting. He is the reinforcing what the viewers think and saying, what the fuck kind of world are we living in now? And he's he gets a few ass kicking scenes, but the movie's not as heavy on him. Most of the time it is just Michael going through the desert and making sense of everything. And I figured I was going to be alone in my liking of this, but I actually like this one. But yeah, it gets hammered on quite a lot. Lots of
I like this. He has one of my favorite line of Reggie. Like, I love "Come On, You Mother," and the first one, hey, this guy's not gonna leak all over my ice cream, is he? But my favorite line in this movie from Reggie is after he kills the zombie cop. Man, some cops can be real assholes.
I forgot about that. He does that. Everyone likes to roast how they're using a lot of outtakes and stuff, but it's like compared to other movies, I would never have known that had I not looked at that. I would have just figured, okay, that was a choice, and apparently that was a choice. But everyone just keeps making sense. Half the movie got shelved. They had to make sense of it, and it's like, yeah, but it's not like every other Roger Corman movie where we got to use stock footage from the last release because we didn't shoot much of the new one, and
it works well in the fact that
I would never know had I looked that up.
I think it works because especially how far would they go in part 5? Like they're playing with the notion of alternate dimensions, and just like
and I mean we're
going
making
back and
sense
forth
of the tall man, so we're gonna have flashbacks of Jody.
Yeah.
and like things what I'm saying that what you see or what you don't see kind of thing, and I think that's work. That's Coscarelli probably realizing, I should fucking did that stupid shit with part 3, and let's get back to that sci-fi angle because remember this is a sci-fi horror series, so let me get back to the sci-fi. I mean the sci-fi kind of overtakes the horror aspects of it a lot because when it's Mike's side of things, it's kind of more sci-fi than anything else. Except the few creepy moments where you get the flashback. So what is it, the Civil War, and you
Lots
see
of drilling
tall
in
man.
heads.
Actually,
That's later
Tall Man
on.
has Tall Man has one of my favorite lines in this one too, when he's about to drill a Mike's head, and now this won't hurt a bit. Well, maybe just a little bit, and it's like one of the few jokes the Tall Man actually tells.
Right.
Right. How do you feel when you're seeing the origin of him, whatever the hell that meant? Where you're seeing he was like once a human before he became like taken over by like this alien zombie force. And hello, do I know you?
Gemini Morningside owned the mortuary that I like all that stuff. I like that, like finding out that he was actually the inventor of the dimension fork that they use as the gateway to get to and from the tall man's dimension, his home world. I like all that stuff.
He makes you almost forget that he's going to be a bastard later on.
Right. It's like, wait, come back, and then the fortune teller is actually his mother and shit, his elderly mother, who keeps reappearing. The fortune teller from the first one, her creepy little laugh. I love all that shit.
Okay, fair enough. I, I'm surprised you guys like it because you guys were like, "Oh, I'd leave it at part 3." So
No,
expect-
he should have left it at part 2. But I mean, I mean, if he decides to continue on, gives us a sequel that's good like part 4, fuck it, might as well. I'll sit through the insufferableness that is part 3 to get to part 4.
All right. Anyone notice how the car explosion is almost as big as the house explosion from the first?
Don loves explosions. He does.
It's seriously staged very similarly. Like it's always in the upper right-hand corner or some shit.
Mhm.
It was-
On the commentary, I know Reggie Banner says that Don just likes blowing shit up.
Oh, might
he, also,
even.
he, also, he also, not to cut you off, Cameron, but he also noted that in that commentary, Reggie Banner said that the KNB actually took a pay cut to work on Phantasm 4.
Kurtzman is the man. If you're serious, he will.
Reggie actually, I think at a convention or somewhere that, oh no, when they worked on Wishmaster, he said that he was telling Nicotero that Don was trying to get another Phantasm, but he was having trouble finding funding, getting money on it. And Reggie said that Nicotero told him, "Tell Don to fucking call me," and that Nicotero actually did work on it for like, I think, very little or maybe even free, because
lovely.
because Nicotero was an awesome dude, like you could count on him to look out for you. You know what I'm saying? He'll hook you up and shit.
It's just
especially
sad how they've had to have all the blunders, all the speak for themselves. Because I mean, Raimi's helping out Kurtzman, Nicotero's helping out everybody, and they're putting in good words for him. And yet, it wasn't really until recently that he's the Walking Dead go-to guy. But yeah, and it's like with these guys, is like all the Phantasm guys. They only had to wait like 4 years in between the last one, so they're still fresh and ready to do whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sure they still have a kind of they're on the wire. They're barely getting them done on time, and they're they don't know how it'll turn out. They just have to do their best with what they got. I
Right.
especially find it very interesting how Mike in this at one point is like, "I just wish I hadn't been born at all." He says that at one point, and it's like it's kind of telling. It's like release yourself from the hell. And so this is where these movies work for me in a dream state. They really only, but it's a very interesting dream. It's a very interesting kind of hell. It's a very you're saying stuff that won't be coherent with the next scene because it is just like that. Dreams are violent fantasies at times. So
Right.
that's all I got left. Do we want to go with the final entry?
I'm gonna have to admit, I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. Well,
I've only seen it twice. I saw it once when it first came out, and then again for the purposes of this episode. And my thoughts still remain the same. It started as a web series that was
Really?
just going to it started as a web series that was going to be done by the eventually credited director David Hartman. That was just going to focus on Reggie after the ending of 4, after Oblivion, and it was just going to be like his journey through the desert and shit, and going on various adventures. And Dawn decided that let's just take this and add to it and turn it into a Phantasm sequel, and that's exactly how it feels. It feels like half a web series and half tacked on Phantasm shit.
so long story short, this is just more dream jumping, more greatest hits tributes, more hit and miss.
He goes really far into the alternate dimension stuff, like where it just, and I like a lot of those ideas, and then again, like a lot of it doesn't work, and then a lot of it does. Like I like that play between like going side by side with like how the worlds, like what's Reggie and Mike doing on this, dimension, on this plane of existence, as opposed to what they're doing on this plane of existence, how everything coincides with that. I like that stuff, but then a lot of it's like I could tell which stuff the credit director David Hartman shot and which stuff Coscarelli shot, because he added stuff uncredited, and you could just tell with what he added and what the other guy did. Definitely,
I actually couldn't tell. I thought it was all just one low budget shoot where sometimes the cinematography was working and other times it wasn't. So
no. A lot of it, some of it, like half of it, was shot in 2014 with where it was, with the idea of it being a web series, and then Coscarelli saw it and decided we should add on into it and group it all together and make it a Phantasm sequel. And then he added stuff like there was Michael Baldwin wasn't even going to be in it. I don't even think Angus Scrimm was going to be in it, or Bill Thornberry was even going to be in it. It was just going to focus on Reggie and him like, going through this adventure. And Coscarelli decided like, yeah, let's bring back Mike and Angus Scrimm and Bill Thornberry. That's why Thornberry's basically cameo in the movie feels so tacked on, because he wasn't essentially meant to be in it. And I mean,
I didn't feel like it was tacked on, but fair enough.
I thought so. I felt it was tacked on. Like
I figured
I mean, it's sweet, but it's like he just shows up out of nowhere,
I figured they all just had these all in mind, because remember, then there's the after credits scene where Rocky from Part 3 shows up and kicks some ass and talks to the dwarf fighter.
Yeah, that felt like, let's just throw Rocky in there as well. It's like
still better than any other Marvel after credits scene.
Yeah, totally.
So to give you an idea, this is kind of a fan film.
Yes, it has fan films.
Yeah, it's an overdone digital look, but I'm going to argue that it's a better fan film than either Star Wars The Force Awakens or Hellraiser Revelations. So I should give you an idea. That's some serious competition.
No, it's better because Coscarelli actually helped out. You know what I'm saying? It would be like if they did those Star Wars movies, but Lucas helped out on them. You know what I'm saying? Coscarelli actually, kind of like, this is good, but like, let's do this to make it, more connected. You know what I'm saying?
Still a disconnect, and at the same time, it's like it is trying to be kind of just a fun, like, it doesn't even remotely try to get you interested if you aren't familiar. There's like, hey, this is only for.
Yeah, this isn't trying to, like, they don't give a fuck if we're this is for the fans and that's it. If you're an outsider, go fuck yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah. I will say though, the opening car chase. I mean, this whole franchise always has cool car crashes and chases, but I'm not going to say this is the best one. No, not even. But they did a good job filming it. And that says a lot for, low budget filmmaking, because, they're staying inside most of the time, so you can't really see, you don't have time to track and see, if there's anything else moving outside just because of how they framed it. Because, I mean, He's being attacked by one of the spears. Now, I will say the spear animation, not good.
Really
and I get it. And that's what blows my fucking mind. I don't know how they did the animation for parts 2, 3, and 4. And I mean, those were the 80s and 90s. So what happened here? But I get it.
They're relying totally on CGI now for the ball effects, where, back in those movies, it was just a fucking, like a softball that they painted silver and they just had flying around on a string.
Yeah, but you remember the softball. I mean, you see just all this other blended effects and reflections and other stuff. It's just like, it blows my mind how they could have done that. Because
effects were better back in those days. Like CGI, just it has its pluses, but it definitely has some minuses. And this definitely shows the minus of it.
Well,
that's
why I go back to fan film, because I mean, the other director, his only experience is writing for like other animations and everything. So I get where he's coming from. He's totally approaching this like a serial, but at the same time, it does feel like this was just animated by a bunch of fans. It feels like a movie that they were trying to make, and then they just said, fuck it, we we want to get it done, but it can only. Was there a crowdfunder for this at all? Because it does kind of feel like it was completed with fan support.
I don't remember one. I just remember it getting announced out of nowhere. Like, oh shit, they're making another Phantasm, and then they announced that I think 2014, and then like they were like, it's coming, and then everybody's like, yo, what the fuck happened to Phantasm 5? And then finally, when they remastered Phantasm after that, then they finally released Ravager.
So they had to have. So yeah, that tells me there was just a lot of management and it was in production hell and other bullshit that will probably.
What I think happened was that they initially shot the web series footage, and then Coscarelli saw it, and then it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna turn this into a movie. And then the 2 years in between that announcement and the release was them shooting the new footage to add on to.
Okay. And well,
and then
you said this was a web series, and strangely enough. Okay, well, it's funny you say that because I think this would have worked way better as a web series in a weird way. It's just funny how some stuff works better depending on the format, you know?
Right, because that's how it was intended to be. It was always intended to be a web series. So it's like, I wonder if like the director's like, oh god, you know, if I knew it was going to be a movie, I could have done it so much better, you know.
Right, if you guys would make up your fucking mind.
You could see it in like the opening 5-10 minutes that this is just like this is obviously like, you know, like you said, like almost like a fan film.
Lowest of the low, but you're just, it is kind of like, okay, I'll put it to you this way. This is like a popular band that's putting on one hell of a show, despite having sound and lighting and issues. And for this film, halfway along the way, it does kind of feel like it loses its voice. So that is the equivalent of you go to a concert and the lead has to down some extra water and clear his throat because he's been singing so long in the tour. And this is just it. This is a farewell tour. And it's not the best tour, but they're still trying their best, even though, you know, and you can't blame the studio or anything else. Well, I mean, you can, but you're still admiring that the main people involved are still trying to give 100, even though everything keeps varying. Clearly, they shot it over different days because the lighting varies. But I'll just go back to even just the opening car chase. I just love how this time, instead of him getting carjacked or using a car, he does the carjacking and says, "Get the fuck out of my car," and just flat out just faces off with those spears.
By the way, that's David Hartman, the guy who takes his car and he takes it back.
Really? Oh, yeah. The guy who gets run over, and so that's the other thing is, and him putting on the shades and then waking up with the retirement home with the older Mike. I just thought those were cool scenes, but like the opening car chase really. For me, this was like, I'm watching this, I'm making my notes, I'm like, this is almost as Expendables as the Expendables. Do we just, it's maybe more so, maybe less, I don't care. It's a rough. It's not exactly shit sandwich, but it's still rough around the edges. It's like Lesser Babylon 5. It's like, what it can't do, it just can't fucking do, but there's still some goodness in there that you can just, if you just force your brain to just shut up and say, okay, obviously I'm not going to get, you know, industrial light and magic effects, but that's okay. There are a few different times where I have to, it's going to benefit from a rewatch, because I will say it is just very rough just at each introduction. That just what does parts of this movie are just all the transitions. You're just not ready for all the shit being thrown in at you. And that's why I think, you know, this in part 4 just would not be good, because, I mean, you're just not going to make sense of it.
Right. This one is highly ambitious in its storytelling. They have
a lot of stock footage showing all the disasters and invasion, and even though the the effects added on aren't convincing, it still does what it's supposed to. It gives you the idea.
And going to the tall man's home world and all that. And like, yeah, like just, they're going back and forth between alternate dimensions and stuff. It's like it's very ambitious, but it's obvious they didn't have all the funds to just make all that, like,
Yeah.
on the life per se, you know what I'm saying? And
Keeps waking up in a retirement home and it's just showing you old habits die hard.
I like that, it's like
Yeah.
whether this is all the ravings of an old, crazy Reggie, and Mike is sitting there with his ponytail all sophisticated and his glasses and shit.
Yeah. The shades were a cool bit. Really, the only part I don't like is the horse killing scene. I really don't know what the fuck.
Oh my god, that was so bad. It was
like Survival of the Dead, where I'm like, why is this junky scene in?
It was worse than Survival of the Dead. That scene.
It's not. It's not an awesome scene like Godfather. When you're gonna get with the horse killing, boy howdy, you better do a good job. I know I'm not a psychopath, people. I'm just fucking with you. I mean, really, it was just so there. Like, take it out, nothing changes. It's just like, it's like they wanted to get everybody's attention, and I really don't get it. I mean, this has already been a pretty animal, non-gratuitous killing franchise, so they could have kept it that way, but no, someone.
Yeah, they decided to just throw in horse fucking. It was really bad. I did like though how they had Daniel Roebuck in there.
Yeah, who, fun fact,
cameo.
was doubled by Bob Ivey back when he was on Nash Bridges. So,
Really?
so
Yeah, Daniel Roebuck is very known to be like have like almost a encyclopedia of horror movies for a brain. Like he's incredibly knowledgeable of horror. That's why he shows up in so many.
I didn't know that. I know Joe Estevez is a big fan of him, having worked on a movie with him.
Roebuck is great. I like when Daniel Roebuck shows up in shit because he's great.
Totally. River's Edge, We Were Soldiers. Yeah. So I didn't understand his character, but his character makes a little more sense because he's like talking like a Russian or something.
I think he was supposed to be German. His name was like Detmir or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's like he's. So then this is where it totally goes all X-Files in the second half, where it's like this whole Big Brother is watching you, and lo and behold, well, I don't want to spoil it since, Shawn hasn't seen it, but it's surprising nonetheless. So this is basically 5 different movies stitched together.
Oh yeah,
for better or worse.
I mean, I thought they tried their best to basically do make it all seem seamless. It doesn't entirely work, but like I said, I love the ideas they displayed. I just wish they had a little bit more money to do it. That is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they just should have just had some more consistent scenes because you're watching it half the time. Yeah, I don't ever really go into reshoot mode. I just go more into this is such a different vision than the other vision because it's just, or they got a different cinematographer because it's just barely matching up.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I think you guys have sold me. Now I'm gonna have to watch it.
All right. I mean, you said you had the whole box set from.
No, I don't have the box set, but I know it's on Shudder, so I can.
It's also on Prime.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, I can check it out. Yeah, it's like I said when we first talked about doing this, I told myself I'm going to go back and rewatch 2 and 3 because we had watched the first one recently, and then watch 4 and 5, and yeah, I just never got around to it, but that's on me.
No, it's all good. I mean, because I figured you guys were going to be way harder on this because I had only seen the first one twice, and I was watching these all back to back for this episode, and I'd seen parts of part 4, but it didn't register. I was just like, yeah, I know I've seen that, and it makes sense of it because it's confusing as fuck.
I've seen parts 1 and 2, especially part 1, just in the same number of times. Part 4, maybe not that many times, but I've seen it quite a lot. So I have an extensive knowledge of it where I didn't need to see 1, 2, or 4 for the purposes of this episode. 3 and 5, yeah. Not really 3, like I said before. Like, I remember quite a bit of it. I just wanted a refreshing. 5 definitely I had to rewatch because I had only seen it once.
Oh, good. Yeah. So if you don't like any of these, you're not gonna like part 5. And at the same time, it could have been far worse. I mean, for me, it's just the series just becomes more fan service, just more of the same, and less like. I mean, part 4 tries to be like more like the first one, but while doing this using the style of part 3. But yeah, the rest of them were trying to be like part
Right.
2, and so I mean, this is very hard to recommend because mileage is going to vary. So these aren't high art, obviously, and they're not for Oscar snobs or deep thinkers. It's not campy, but it's not a waste of time or moronic either. It's violent without feeling overdone or exploitive. It's low budget without feeling restricted half the time. It's random without being scary like deep, but it's still freaky. It's organized, unorganized, but like deliberate unorganization where you witness, this alien dismantling a bunch of towns while invading the heroes' craniums. And so, yeah, it's not as silly as a Full Moon Entertainment franchise, but I could understand if you wanted to rank it as high as Evil Dead or Wishmaster or just any other franchise. I mean, it's all going to vary. So, based on your persona, is pretty much it. So, you really don't know until you work. Yeah, so I'll let you guys rank it. How would you rank all of these? Like, just give a brief paragraph and a rating.
Well, if I had to rank the movies in order of like to dislike, I'd have to go with probably Phantasm 2, Phantasm 1, Phantasm 4. I'll make Phantasm 5 in the 4th spot, even though I haven't seen it, because it's got to be better than Phantasm 3.
Okay, so 1, 2, and 4 are going to be 4 out of 5.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And free is going to be a 2 or free or nothing.
Yeah, I'll give it a 2. I'll be.
Cool. And so Rob, you're doing.
One definitely has to be. One will always be my favorite. I know that I'm the outsider a lot of it at times. You know what I'm saying? Because I know 2 is the favorite, and I can understand that. But 1 just, I'm probably biased, but I love 1. As much as I love the original Nightmare on Elm Street. You know what I'm saying?
Competition here, people.
I used to watch Phantasm a lot, like the original Phantasm, like the first one. I used to watch it a lot, like just crazy amount of times. To the point where it was one of those movies where like my father was like, "Watch something else, please."
Fair enough.
So like there's 1, there's 2, but 2 is like I love 2 quite a bit, almost as much as 1. 1 just gets the higher up because it was the one that got me into the series as is. So like 1 will always get the up and up over 2, but I love 2 just as much.
Okay.
2 is just fantastically done, even though it doesn't have no Michael Baldwin. I appreciate everything else about it.
So those are 4 out of 5.
Part 1 is a 5. Part 1 and 2 are 5 out of 5. I rank them the same. But I'm not tied, but I rank them at least 5 out of 5. I mean, in my eyes. 4, definitely number 3. I really, really enjoy 4. I think, I know that's maybe a controversial opinion to some people. I know some people like it a lot too. I've talked to people who actually like Phantasm 4 a lot. And that's definitely number 3. I'll give that a 4 out of 5. Part 5, definitely the 4th spot. I give that a 3 out of 5. real, ambitious. Not all the ideas work, but they have a lot of good ones in there, and they try their best, and they get a good rating, just based off that. And part 3 can go to hell.
No, so not going to even give it a rating. Got it.
It's a big fat fucking 0. It's such a piece of shit.
Holy shit! All right.
I cannot stand that fucking movie. Like, dude, like I rewatched it for the purposes, and I didn't even make it the whole way through. I'm like, no, I don't need to see anymore. This still sucks.
Damn. Alrighty. Well, I'm gonna give all of these a 3.5 out of 5.
all
across
same rating.
Yeah, I like 2 and 3 and 4 the most, but they all have their moments. They all have their gotcha, bitch. Just not catering to any formula except their own, and all comfortable being their own kind of bizarre shit hitting the fan, distorted vision.
And that's why I respect the series the most. Because
Yeah.
like, we're doing our own thing. We're not trying to be like anybody else over here.
Yeah, especially in a time where the slasher craze is going on, and
Right.
everybody's following that formula. It definitely stands out when compared to those.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's kind of also why I kind of compare it to the Warlock series, because it is kind of just that it mashes up elements of other genres as well, and then just for better or worse, then just kind of just you never know where it's going, and based on what you like determines whether you'll like these kind of movies. So I mean, this is why it's just hard for me to recommend to everybody, because again, your mileage is going to vary. You might say, oh, I like this kind of stuff, or stuff that's similar to this, but I don't know, man, I couldn't get into it. Or, oh, I love this, so it,
Right.
because of the inconsistency, I'm, for all I know, you guys could have even hated this, and I would have been the only one defending it, saying it's worth a watch. It's crazy. It's weird. So I'll just leave it at that. It's been a hell of a lot of fun doing this with you guys and giving a different retrospect on how it was just one of the ones that embraced drive-in circuits and home video and just kept gaining a cult audience in little ways more than it actually realized. So thank you for summing it and breaking it down, seeing how it evolved over time, how it's aged. Because it's just good to know, because I find this a hard thing even when you rank the movies by year, whether, I watch it all the time, but is it a top 10? I don't know. Maybe it is,
Right.
maybe it's not.
Right, absolutely.
Where would you rank this with the other horror, fantasy, sci-fi franchises that you know and love?
Like
Hellraiser, Nightmare, Friday 13th,
I
even
put it above.
Wishmaster.
I put it Hellraiser because as hit or miss as the series gets, it's still a lot better than fucking Hellraiser ended up.
Yeah.
Hellraiser just like, what the fuck is going on here? Like,
This
like,
is still
yeah.
better than Children of the Corn, but that's no
a
contest.
lot better than Children of the Corn, yo. Like, Children of the Corn just became like, what the fuck? Like, I gave up after fucking what was it? Part 3, Urban Harvest, where the climax they would literally fucking, you had a hand puppet grabbing fucking Barbie dolls in the air. Like, this is horse shit.
I wouldn't know.
Horse shit, sir.
Is Part 5 the one with
Eva
Carradine,
Mendes.
Fred Williamson?
Yeah.
I know Part 5 had Eva Mendes. I think that may have been the one too. I know
Maybe
one of them
she-
had. No, Billy Drago was in Part 8, I believe.
Oh, Part 8 was hysterical just for him alone.
Yeah, Jesus.
It's no, I get it. It's fucking terrible, but just seeing that, just
No.
car chase
I'm not.
Bad Boys 2 shamelessly taken, and it's like, what the fuck just happened?
Right. I was just lamenting, like, why the fuck are there so many Children of the Corn movies? What the
Yeah.
fuck?
Blind Side is one. I barely recognized Charlize Theron in her screen debut in that one, so there you go.
Yeah, Part 3. Yeah, I think she's even dubbed in
I think
in
so.
Part 3.
She doesn't
Yeah.
sound at all. So that's why I missed her. I'm like, hey, that's
And I think Naomi Watts is in part 4, if I remember correctly. And then Eva Mendes in part 5.
Because I watched these all out of order and was just trying to look for titties and I never made sense of any of those fucking movies, but I can make sense of Phantasm because it's bad shit crazy.
Trying to make sense. That's why at least Coscarelli's trying to make sense, even though it makes sense.
Well, that's just it. And so, and unless you're paying perfect attention, it's hard to make sense of half the time who's running around in their dreams and who's running around the real world. But it does it with, for lack of a better word, just confidence, as opposed to, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. We're just, I mean, maybe they didn't, but they do it in a way where it's at least feasible. You can at least just stand back and watch. So yeah, that's why I'm comparing this to Warlock, because Warlock is also all kinds of batshit insane, that whole series.
Yeah.
So if you can handle those, you can probably handle this. If you just want something more deep like Candyman or better Hellraiser, then you probably won't like it. But if you just want something just insane and just crazy and not necessarily so demented, but just very wow. Someone had the nerve to just make their own bizarre, distorted vision and get away with it and defend it at the end of the day. Okay, not bad.
Right.
That's all I can say. I'm out of words to describe it. So I'm going to let you guys plug this. It's been so much fun doing it with you.
Same here. About time we did this too and shit. We've been begging you to do this.
I know.
Episode.
I kept trying to sneak in other small stuff, and then I was like, I don't know. Then you're like, let's just fucking do this already. So I was like, all right, you've heard the man. Rob has put his hammer down. The gavel is out. Let's just do it.
Like, come on already. I want to do this.
Boss, fuck you, work. Let's do it. All right.
All right, totally. But before I plug, I forgot to mention when we talk about Phantasm, that the house disappearing effect that they use, the funeral home when it disappears, that's actually the transporter effect from the original Star Trek.
Wait, in the first one?
Yes. When the house disappears after like Reggie's killed off and they drive away, when the house disappears, that's the original transport effect from the TOS, the Star Trek.
Oh wow!
Did they steal it? Like just take it without anyone knowing, or did they?
The guy who did the effect for Star Trek is the one who did it.
Oh, okay.
So
well, and I think that is kind of why I open up to this. All these movies could have easily been episodes of Tales from the Crypt, Star Trek, or even fucking Twilight Zone, or X-Files.
Yeah.
And it just was always so wild to me because they would show Phantasm 4 after reruns of shows like that, like X-Files.
Yeah. I'll go first with plugs. You can find me as the Cinema Drunkie on you can find me the Cinema Drunkie on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find my numerous writings on ultimateactionmovies.com as well as actionflix.com and my blog, thecinemadrunkie.wordpress.com. You can find my Star Trek podcast, Bros on the Bridge, as well as my upcoming one, The Action Drunkies, where we'll be discussing action movies we all love and dear. Podcast by action fans discussing it with action fans. So look for that.
Nice.
Fucking perfect.
Thank you.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Slasher as Shawn of the Dead. You can find our podcast, House That Screams, on Apple, Spotify, and Anchor. And be good to one another.
Please. This is precious time. Alrighty. No, thank you all for being here. Always a pleasure talking to you. And stay freaky, my friends. Alrighty. Boom, right. Boom, boom, and pushing the button.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.